I'm Nora, and my life used to be a canvas of bright colors, laughter with Ethan, stolen dances in our kitchen, dreams whispered under starlit skies. But now, at 36, I'm drowning in a gray haze, trapped in a silent house where love has turned to echoes. My husband's late nights and distant eyes have carved a loneliness so deep, it's a physical ache in my chest. Last night, desperate to escape the suffocating void, I stepped into a world I never imagined I'd enter. A world of forbidden sparks and dangerous choices. What I did under the cover of darkness, in the shadow of glittering city lights, could shatter everything I've ever known. Will my secret destroy us, or is it the key to feeling alive again? Stick around to find out what I've done, and what happens when the truth comes crashing down. Picture this. A single, flickering street lamp casting a pale glow through my bedroom window, its light trembling, like it's as unsure of itself as I am. I'm Nora, 36 years old, standing in the quiet of a life I barely recognize anymore. My world, once vibrant with laughter and shared dreams, has dulled to a muted gray, and I'm not sure how I got here. I've been married to Ethan, 38, for 8 years, 12 if you count the time before the rings. He's a corporate lawyer, a man whose ambition has always been his compass. But lately, that compass points everywhere but home. These past few months, our connection has frayed, unraveling into something hollow, something that echoes in the silence of our 2-story suburban house just outside Chicago. Our home used to be a sanctuary. The manicured lawn out front, the kitchen where we'd dance around each other making dinner, laughing over spilled sauce. Those memories feel like they belong to someone else. Now this place is just a shell where I drift, unseen, unheard. I pace the empty rooms, my footsteps the only sound breaking the stillness. Ethan's presence is a ghost of its own. He stumbles in late, around 10 p.m., the sharp snap of his briefcase closing like a gunshot in the quiet. By the time I'm rubbing sleep from my eyes in the morning, he's already gone, leaving behind nothing but the faint trace of his cologne lingering in the hallway. It's a scent that used to pull me closer, a promise of warmth, but now it just reminds me of absence. Our conversations, if you can call them that, have withered to nothing. I'll ask about his day, my voice soft, hopeful, and he'll mutter something about meetings, screens, endless reports, words that mean nothing to me, delivered without even a glance in my direction. I'm met with a wall, brick by brick built of exhaustion and distraction. I've tried to reach through it, my voice cracking as I plead for just a moment, just a real talk. But it echoes unanswered, swallowed by the void between us. I remember one night, not long ago, standing in the dim light of our living room, begging for something, anything, to bridge the gap. Ethan turned away, his hazel eyes refusing to meet mine, and said, "We'll talk later. Things are complicated now." That later is a phantom, always just out of reach, and I'm left with this gnawing loneliness that claws at me from the inside. I feel like a ghost in my own life, haunting these walls, invisible even to myself sometimes. There are days I catch my own reflection in a window or a mirror and startle at the stranger staring back. The exhaustion, the weight of unspoken words, it's etched into my skin, deeper every day. But I'm not completely alone. Not yet. There's Lila, my best friend, 35, a graphic designer whose energy is like a burst of energy. Here I am again, standing in front of that same bedroom mirror, the one that's seen me at my best and now, too often, at my worst. I'm wearing the deep emerald dress Ethan once couldn't take his eyes off of, the one I slipped into on our 5th anniversary. I can still picture that night, dancing under string lights at a lakeside restaurant, the air warm with summer and his laughter, his hands on my waist pulling me close. I run my fingers over the smooth fabric now, tracing the memory of his smile, the way it used to light up everything. But as I stare at my reflection, I realize I haven't seen my own smile in months. My eyes look hollow, like they belong to someone who's forgotten how to feel anything but this heavy, endless ache. The house is empty again, a tomb of silence that presses against me. Ethan texted earlier. Another late night at the office, no surprise there. I can almost hear the cold, clipped tone of his message in my head, not even a hint of apology. The walls feel like they're closing in, tighter with every breath I take. I can't stay here, not tonight. A restless energy surges through me, a desperate need to escape, to feel something other than this suffocating void. My hands tremble as I grab my phone and dial Lila. She's been begging me to come out for weeks, to join her at a party she's throwing at her trendy loft downtown. Her voice bursts through the line, bright and insistent, before I can even get a word out. Nora, don't you dare say no this time. You're coming, and that's final. My voice shakes as I try to protest, mumbling something about not being in the mood, but her laughter cuts through my hesitation like a lifeline. I'm not taking no for an answer. Get over here. You need this. And just like that, I'm nodding to myself, even though she can't see me, feeling the tiniest spark of something like hope. I slip on a coat, grab my keys, and head out to the car, not even leaving a note for Ethan. The guilt gnaws at me as I slide into the driver's seat, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turn white. What if he comes home early for once? What if he notices I'm gone? But then I shake my head, bitterness creeping in. He probably wouldn't even care. I start the engine and pull out onto the dark suburban streets, heading toward the city. The streetlights blur through my windshield, streaks of gold and white against the black, like they're racing alongside my thoughts. Every mile feels like a small rebellion, a step away from the life I've been trapped in, but the weight of leaving without a word sits heavy in my chest. I turn up the radio, some melancholic indie song filling the silence, but it doesn't drown out the questions swirling in my mind. When I finally reach Lila's loft, the pulse of music and laughter spills out into the hallway even before I push open the door. Lila's loft is a burst of life, all exposed brick and fairy lights, packed with people I don't know, but whose energy feels like a temporary escape. I spot Lila almost instantly, her vibrant auburn hair catching the light as she waves me over with a wide grin. She pulls me into a tight hug, her voice a warm shout over the noise. You made it. I knew you couldn't resist. I force a smile, but my chest still feels tight, like I'm carrying the weight of home with me even here. She drags me through the crowd, introducing me to faces that blur together, until we step out onto the balcony for a breath of fresh air. The cool night breeze brushes against my skin, and for a moment, I can almost forget the ache that's been my constant companion. That's when I see him, Julian. He's leaning against the balcony railing, a glass of amber liquid in one hand, his profile sharp against the glittering city skyline. He's 45, an architect, with salt and pepper hair that catches the faint glow of the string lights overhead. Lila nudges me, whispering that he's a friend in town for a project, before she slips back inside to tend to her guests. I'm left standing there, suddenly hyper-aware of the space between us. Julian turns, and his gaze meets mine, warm, piercing, like he can see right through the mask I've been wearing. He steps closer, his voice low and gravelly, pulling me in like a tide as he comments on the view. This city never looks the same twice, does it? Always something new to notice. I nod, my throat tight, but his words unlock something in me, and soon we're talking, the party noise fading into a distant hum behind us. Hours slip by out there on that balcony, the world shrinking to just the two of us. We talk about everything: art, travel, the way a single line on a canvas or a building can hold a whole story. His tales of designing structures across Europe make me laugh, a sound I haven't heard from myself in weeks, maybe months. I notice every detail about him, the way his hand rests so casually on the railing, fingers long and steady, the faint scent of cedarwood cologne that lingers in the air between us, earthy and grounding. His eyes, a deep gray, linger on mine longer than they should, and I don't look away. There's a moment, charged and electric, when he points out a landmark in the distance, his fingers brushing my wrist as he gestures. The touch is fleeting, barely there, but it sends a jolt through me, and I don't pull back. I can't. My heart is pounding, a wild rhythm I can't control, as guilt and desire clash inside me like a storm. I think of Ethan, of the cold silence waiting for me at home, and the loneliness I've carried for so long surges up, drowning out the voice telling me to stop. The night deepens, the city lights twinkling below us, like silent witnesses to whatever this is becoming. Julian's voice softens, almost a whisper now, as he suggests we continue talking somewhere quieter. My breath catches, and I feel the weight of my wedding ring on my finger, heavy as an anchor. I hesitate, my mind screaming at me to walk away, to go back to Lila, to the safety of the crowd. But that loneliness, that aching void I've lived with for months, pushes me forward, nudging me past the point of reason. I nod, barely, and follow him as we slip away from the party, unnoticed, into the night. We end up at a nearby hotel, a sleek, modern building with floor-to-ceiling windows that reflect the city's glow like a mirror. My pulse is a frantic drumbeat as we step into the elevator, the silence between us thick with unspoken tension. On the 20th floor, he unlocks a room, and the door clicks shut behind us with a finality that makes my stomach twist. The space is intimate, yet foreign. All clean lines and muted tones, with a massive window overlooking the sprawling city below, a sea of lights that seems to pulse with secrets of its own. I'm standing in that hotel room now, the early morning casting a pale, almost ghostly light through the massive window. The air feels heavy, thick with the weight of what happened here just hours ago. Julian is still asleep, his form a quiet shadow under the crisp white sheets, his breathing slow and even. I slip out of bed as silently as I can, my bare feet cold against the hardwood floor, my heart a tangled mess of emotions I can't begin to unravel. I move to the window, drawn to the view of the waking city, the first hints of dawn painting the skyline in soft grays and muted golds. My reflection stares back at me in the glass, a faint, hollow version of myself, eyes wide with something I can't name. Regret, maybe? Or a raw, aching kind of freedom. I press my forehead against the cool pane, letting the chill ground me as my mind races. What have I done? The question loops endlessly, clawing at the edges of my thoughts. Guilt is a sharp, jagged thing inside me, cutting deeper with every breath. I think of Ethan, of the life we built, the promises we made, and how I've shattered them in a single reckless night. But beneath that guilt, there's something else, a defiant, almost dangerous thrill. For the first time in months, I feel alive, seen, like I've clawed my way out of the suffocating fog that's been my existence. Julian saw me, really saw me, in a way I'd forgotten was possible. And in those stolen hours, in the quiet intensity of our connection, I rediscovered a piece of myself I thought was lost forever. It's a bitter, complicated kind of joy, laced with the knowledge of the price I've paid. I turn away from the window, my gaze falling on the emerald dress draped over a chair, now wrinkled and worn, a stark reminder of the night's choices. It looks different in the morning light, less like a symbol of forgotten romance and more like evidence of a line crossed. I dress quietly, pulling on my clothes with mechanical precision, each movement deliberate as I try to piece myself back together. I don't wake Julian. I can't face him. Not now. Not with the storm of emotions still raging inside me. My heart feels heavy, a stone in my chest, but there's a resoluteness there too. I need to go, to face whatever comes next on my own terms. I slip out of the room without a word, the door closing softly behind me, the sound barely a whisper in the stillness. The drive home is a blur. The city streets fading into suburban lanes as I grip the steering wheel, my knuckles pale. I keep the radio off, unable to bear any sound that might intrude on the chaos in my head. My thoughts are a storm, a relentless swirl of regret and rebellion, each one crashing against the other. I replay every moment of the night, how Julian's voice enveloped me, the warmth of his fleeting touches, and how the world seemed to narrow down to just the two of us in that quiet, forbidden space. I think of Ethan too, of the distance between us, the silence that's become our language. Did I do this to hurt him? To wake him up? Or was it just for me? A desperate grasp at feeling something, anything, after so long in the dark. When I pull into the driveway of our house, the familiar sight of the manicured lawn and the two-story facade feels like a punch to the gut. It's still empty. Ethan hasn't returned yet, and the silence of the place is louder than ever as I step inside. The air smells faintly of the lavender candle I burned days ago, a ghost of normalcy that mocks me now. I walk to the kitchen, my steps slow, almost reluctant, and sink into a chair at the table. The quiet presses against me, suffocating, amplifying every thought, every doubt. I can't just sit here, drowning in this. I need to do something to mark this moment, to make it real in a way I can't take back. My eyes catch on a small notepad on the counter, the one I usually jot down grocery lists or reminders on. My hand trembles as I reach for it, the weight of what I'm about to do pressing down on me like a physical force. I grab a pen, the ink black and final, and start writing. The words spill out, raw and unfiltered, a confession of the night I can't keep inside anymore. I don't name names, don't spell out every detail, but I write enough. About the longing, the escape, the moment I let myself fall into a connection that wasn't ours. It's a jagged, messy scrawl, my guilt and defiance bleeding onto the page. I tell him I'm sorry, but I also tell him I felt alive for the first time in months. I leave the note there on the kitchen counter, right where he'll see it when he comes home, next to the mug he always grabs for his morning coffee. Then I step back, my breath shallow, feeling like I've just lit a fuse I can't extinguish. I retreat to the living room, unable to stay in that kitchen, with the note staring back at me like a living thing. My heart is a wild thing in my chest, pounding so hard I'm sure it'll betray my hiding spot. I linger in the doorway, half hidden by the shadow of the wall, waiting for the inevitable. Hours crawl by, or maybe it's just minutes. Time feels warped, stretched thin by the tension coiling inside me. Then I hear it. The familiar sound of the front door creaking open, the heavy thud of Ethan's briefcase hitting the floor. My stomach twists as his footsteps echo through the house, slow and deliberate, heading straight for the kitchen. I can picture him now, his suit rumpled from another endless night at the office, his face pale and drawn, shadows under his hazel eyes from too little sleep. He's probably reaching for that mug, expecting the mundane routine of his morning, not knowing the bomb I've left waiting for him. I hold my breath, my fingers digging into the doorframe as I peer around the corner, just enough to see him without being seen. There he is, standing at the counter, his hand pausing mid-air as it hovers over the mug. His eyes catch on the note, and I see the shift, the way his shoulders stiffen, the way his brow furrows as if he senses something's wrong before he even touches it. He picks up the paper, his movements slow, almost cautious, like he's handling something fragile or dangerous. I watch, frozen, as his gaze scans the lines I wrote. his jaw tightening with every word. His fingers grip the edges of the note, crumpling them slightly. And for a heartbeat, I think he might tear it to pieces, let his anger take over. But he doesn't. Instead, he looks up, his eyes darting around the room, searching the empty space as if he can feel me there, watching. "Nora?" His voice cuts through the silence, raw and breaking in a way I haven't heard in years, not since the early days when we'd fight and make up with desperate apologies. It's not loud, not angry, just heavy with something I can't quite name, pain, maybe, or disbelief. My throat tightens, a lump forming that I can't swallow down. I step forward out of the shadows, my bare feet silent on the hardwood floor. Our eyes lock, and the air between us feels charged, like the moment before a storm breaks. There's no shouting, no accusations, just this suffocating silence that presses against us both, fragile and ready to shatter with the smallest wrong move. I see it in his face, the hurt, the confusion, the flicker of something like betrayal that cuts me deeper than any words could. But there's something else too, a vulnerability I haven't seen in so long, a crack in the wall he's built around himself. He doesn't speak, not yet. Instead, he pulls out his phone, his hands shaking just enough for me to notice. I think for a moment he's calling someone else, escaping into work like always. But then my own phone buzzes in my pocket, his name flashing on the screen. I hesitate, my thumb hovering over the answer button, the vibration a small earthquake in my hand. But I can't ignore it. Not now, not with him standing there, the crumpled note still clutched in his grip like a lifeline or a weapon. I can't tell which. I swipe to answer, but before I can even speak, Ethan lowers his phone, ending the call without a word. The silence that follows isn't the empty kind I've grown used to. No, this silence is different, charged, buzzing with 1,000 unspoken questions that hang between us like a storm cloud ready to burst. We stand there for a moment, frozen, just staring at each other across the expanse of the kitchen. Then, almost in unison, we move toward the table, as if drawn by some invisible force. I sink into a chair, the wood creaking under me, and Ethan follows, sitting across from me. The note is still in his hand, edges frayed where his fingers have tightened around it, and I can't look at it without feeling a fresh wave of guilt slice through me. But I force myself to meet his gaze. Those hazel eyes that once felt like home, now searching mine for answers I don't know how to give. For the first time in months, we're here, really here, together in this space. And yet the distance between us feels like a chasm. We start to talk, not about the note or what I've done, not yet, but about everything else that's been festering beneath the surface. I hear my own voice, low and unsteady, as I tell him about the loneliness that's been eating at me, how I've felt like a shadow in this house, unseen, unheard, just drifting through the days. I describe the nights I've spent pacing these rooms, waiting for him to come home, only to be met with the echo of his absence. His face softens, just a fraction, and then he speaks, his voice rough, cracking at the edges like brittle glass. He admits he's been lost too, buried under the weight of endless work, the pressure to keep climbing, to provide, to be something more than he feels he is. I didn't see it, he says, his words barely above a whisper. I didn't see how far we'd drifted. I nod, my throat tight, because I know he's right. We stopped seeing each other long before last night, long before I sought solace in a stranger's gaze. The raw honesty of this moment hurts, like peeling back a scab to expose the wound underneath. But it's necessary. It's the first real conversation we've had in what feels like forever, and even though it's painful, there's a strange relief in it too. We're not fixing anything, not yet, but we're finally acknowledging the cracks, laying them bare on this worn kitchen table between us. I notice the small things as we sit there, things I've missed or ignored for too long. His hand rests on the table, just inches from mine, not touching, but close enough that I can feel the ghost of its warmth. I see the dark circles under his eyes, mirroring the ones I've seen in my own reflection. A shared exhaustion carved into our faces from months of carrying this weight alone. His shirt is slightly untucked, a rare imperfection for a man who's always so put together, and it makes him seem more human, more reachable than he has in ages. I catch the faint tremble in his fingers as he sets the note down, smoothing it out almost absently, like he's trying to make sense of the chaos I've spilled onto the page. Outside, through the kitchen window, the city hums with the early morning traffic, a steady drone of life moving forward while we're stuck here, suspended in this fragile, pivotal moment. The world doesn't care about the storm inside these walls. It keeps turning, indifferent to whether we mend or break. I can hear the distant honk of a car, the rhythmic rumble of a delivery truck, sounds that ground me even as my mind spins. The light streaming through the window is soft, pale, casting long shadows across the table. And it feels like we're caught in a moment of truth and vulnerability, unsure of what the future holds for us. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment if you enjoyed this story. This will help us create more engaging stories for you.